Welcome back to Second Helping, the show of choice for fans and followers of the number one league in all of collegiate athletics, the Southeastern Conference. Travis Reier, senior analyst for BamaOnline.com, part of the On3 network, joined by my great friend and co-host, Brent Beaird, longtime college football analyst for First Coast News down in Jacksonville, Florida. Brent, of course, also a voter for the most prestigious honor in all of collegiate athletics, the Heisman Trophy. A little bit of a break, Brent, but we're back. And first thing we need from you is preseason mag update, because you keep us in tune with those events unlike anyone else could.
Well, the first one out was Lindy's. That was a national magazine. Athlon is out now. And Any Day is going to be Lindy's SEC edition. So, look, if someone, anybody watching us is an SEC fan, that's one that you've got to get. And Phil Steele, to his credit, has tweeted out pretty much all morning that today is when the magazine, as he says, the last page is going to the printer. So it's going to be out by July the 4th. Now, obviously, Trav, when you did your magazine, things are probably a little different now, obviously, but getting that last page in was a real relief, was it not?
Yeah, when you're writing the entire magazine, pretty much. Brent would help me out with that, though, back in the day. God, that's 30 years ago now.
That's right.
Yes, it was very much a sense of relief to get that thing to the printer. Also, some anxiety, too, because probably didn't have enough eyes on it in terms of
Yeah.
copy editing and things like that,
Right.
headlines. So you always held your breath a little bit once it actually came out. But with Phil Still, it's almost like Christmas Eve. You know how they
Yes.
have the radar of Santa
Yeah.
going
Yeah.
across the world, making stops. I think that's kind of what a lot of college football fanatics feel when that magazine of Phil's is on its way. So we look forward to a continuation of the preseason annuals. Brent, how far back does your collection go? I wanted to ask you about that. Your collection, and do you keep all these magazines, and how far back exactly does that go?
Well, when I made my latest move, my youngest daughter was here, and basically the edict that I got, Trav, was, okay, Dad, you can keep one, but two are going. So
Oh, wow.
that was kind of the ratio is what it amounted to. So, I have got preseason magazines. You and I started in the 90s in
Early
sports.
90s. Yeah.
Yes,
Like
and
winter of 92, 93, I want to say.
yes, yes. So I have got magazines back then, if not before, and I know I've got some of the team media guides that go
Yeah.
back that far too. So it's been a while.
Yeah, Heather, the wife, she those media guides that I had kind of stored away for a while.
Yeah,
They've been gone a couple moves ago.
I
Yeah,
understand.
they were displaced as a
Yes.
result of some moves. But I always look forward to that stuff with you, Brent. And you know what else we're going to talk about today? We're going to get into top 3 quarterback scenarios for the Southeastern Conference in 2024. And boy, when you talk about Quinn Ewers coming into the league, you talk about Jackson Arnold coming into the league. Even with Dylan Gabriel moving on from Oklahoma and going to Oregon, there's a lot of excitement out in Norman about the potential of Jackson Arnold, the former 5-star. So we'll get into some quarterback talk. We'll talk some college football playoff kickoff times because those have been revealed here in the last couple of days. And of course, we'll get some nuggets. We love those nuggets
We
from
do.
Brent's notebook. He'll have that for us a little bit later in the program as well. But Brent wanted to start with best home schedules in the Southeastern Conference in 2024. And what we'll do is we'll kind of run through the gauntlet of teams, point out some highlights, and then kind of narrow that list down to our selections of the very best home slates for Southeastern Conference gridiron clubs in the upcoming season. Let's start with Alabama. Again, open with Western Kentucky. That becomes a premium game simply because it's Kalen DeBoer's debut as the successor to Nick Saban at Alabama. But otherwise, USF the next week, Georgia in Tuscaloosa a couple weeks later. You're going to have South Carolina in Tuscaloosa. You're going to have Missouri in Tuscaloosa. And then, of course, you're going to have the Iron Bowl in late November. So I would say, just looking at those 4 or 5 games in particular, a solid slate, but LSU on the road, Oklahoma on the road, Wisconsin on the road. Might lean a little more to the road than I do the home schedule. But again, Georgia, I mean, that's about as premium as it gets.
Yeah. Well, agree with that. And look, Trav, I think that Missouri game at home is important to them too. Missouri at home is a tough out, is it not? So that's important. And then obviously the rivalry with Auburn. Alabama has escaped the plains the last 2 times they've been down there. So anytime they're playing Auburn in Tuscaloosa, it's always much more of an advantage than when they go on the road on that one.
Yeah, they've hammered Auburn pretty good at Bryant-Denny Stadium. It hasn't been the sort of drama and miraculous type of finishes like it's been at Jordan-Hare for sure. Let's talk Arkansas. The Hogs get Tennessee at home. They get LSU at home. They get Ole Miss at home. They get Texas at home. That's pretty stout, Brent, even with Oklahoma State on the road and A&M and Arlington. And I think it's probably really nice if you're an Arkansas season ticket holder to have those 4 particular games at Reynolds Razorback Stadium. But if you're Sam Pittman and you're feeling some warmth on your seat right now, I guess it's good and bad. You'd rather have those games at home if you need to win them, or a couple of them, but tough nonetheless.
I tell you what, and they've got to watch out early, and we've touched on this before. Trav, that at Oklahoma State and then home with UAB, that doesn't make for a real comfy September, does it?
No, it could be exceptionally warm before you even get to October.
Yes.
For Sam Pittman, depending on how those first couple of games go. And Oklahoma State is going to be especially motivated. Arkansas might as well be Oklahoma in that game, because Oklahoma left for the SEC, and now here comes a mighty SEC team.
That's right.
Into Oklahoma State and into Stillwater, and shouldn't have a problem being motivated for that one. Auburn, let's talk about the Tigers' home schedule. Cal, after the trip to Berkeley a year ago, will visit Jordan-Hare. Arkansas also will visit Auburn. Oklahoma at Auburn. And then on the road, boy, October is tough.
Man.
At Georgia, at Missouri, at Kentucky for Auburn in the month of October. And then you get A&M at home in November. But just looking at the home games, Cal, Arkansas, Oklahoma, A&M, I think that's fairly manageable. At least 2-2, maybe 3-1. Maybe you run the slate on those games. And with what's sitting there in October, you might need to.
Well, look, it's rare in this league where you got an entire month and you don't play at home. I know Auburn likes this September, all these games at home. Obviously, the Cows on the road, and I'm sorry, Cows at home.
Yeah.
But boy, that you really pay the price in October, don't you, Trav? That catches up with you at some point. It's a little more favorable, obviously, in November. So September, November is good for Auburn, but Travis, I'm not sure they survive October, frankly.
Yeah, you almost need the perfect start in September before you jump on the road for that scenario involving Georgia, Missouri, and Kentucky. Although we'll see about Kentucky, in terms of roster depth, that may be at a good point for Auburn. Although Auburn, I think you question even a little bit from that perspective right now, going into year 2 under Hugh Freeze. Maybe that'll be different in year 3 or 4. But just at this point right now, what does the Auburn roster look like in late October? But Kentucky, you certainly wonder about as well. As for the Florida Gators, you talk about a home season ticket worth the money.
Oh, yeah.
Miami and Texas A&M early in September in Gainesville. Both those games, by the way, 3:30 Eastern kickoffs. So between heat and the likelihood of lightning delays.
Yeah, right.
Storms, afternoon storms. Pack a lunch if you're a Florida fan. Pack something cold too. It's going to be warm. UCF in Gainesville,
Yes.
I think, is a very interesting game with Gus Malzahn returning to the Swamp. Kentucky at home, LSU at home, Ole Miss. Tell you what, I look at this run, and that's with Georgia in Jacksonville. I look at that stretch of home games right there. If I'm a Florida fan, I got no problem writing that check this year.
Listen, this is a Pops friendly schedule, isn't it, Trev? I think this is the best home schedule Florida's had in a long time. But to back up what you're saying too, now look, if they beat Miami and they start feeling really good about themselves, Sanford's not going to beat them, but Sanford could give them a lot more trouble than they want, and particularly UCF depends on kind of where Gus and that offense is at that point, particularly with KJ Jefferson. I think that will be interesting. But boy, without a doubt, and again, this home schedule, as brutal as this overall schedule is, they need to win these home games so they can get at least to 500 this year.
Is Miami the biggest game of the Billy Napier era to this point?
Yeah, and I think
not a conference game either, but just in terms of what the perception will be of him in that program moving forward.
And I think it's not only that, but it's having what, Trav, 6 months of Gator fans that we run into at the gym and at church and at Publix that say, boy, the loser of that game could get fired. And I don't agree with that. But the point is, it's the build up to this game from the Gator fans.
Yes, very much so. The Georgia Bulldogs. Now, this is a season ticket check I'd probably struggle to write, even for a team like Georgia. Auburn in Athens, Mississippi State, Tennessee, Georgia Tech. That's pretty much your premium games for the Georgia Bulldogs in Athens. On the road now, at Alabama, at Texas, Kentucky, and then you get UF in Jacksonville. Hell, I might just not buy the season ticket and just go the road games.
Brent. Yeah, really. Yeah, I would agree with that. And obviously that starter at Clemson. But look, Trav, with the criticism Dabo's got over the summer, I still think Georgia's a better team. How pumped are they going to be for that game in Atlanta?
Yeah, give me that bundle. If I'm a Georgia fan, give me Clemson in Atlanta, and then I'll go to Tuscaloosa. I'll go to Austin, Lexington, and Florida and Jacksonville.
Man,
and just save on the home season ticket.
Absolutely.
Kentucky, the Wildcats of Mark Stoops, going to get things going with USM, Southern Mississippi. Then you get South Carolina. You also got Georgia on that home slate for the Wildcats, Auburn, and rival Louisville. So I would say, all in all, pretty good looking run of home games there for the Wildcats. When we're talking about the games that stand out, nothing too blingy, but enough. And in terms of importance and the difference between being maybe 8-4 and 6-6, a couple of these home games certainly could play into that.
Month of September is crucial for them, is it not? Having all these games at home,
front loaded.
No doubt, and that's going to, I think, help them a lot. And again, Trav, how many quarterbacks in the league have the weight of this schedule on their shoulders like Brock Vandergrift does right now?
Yeah, we're going to get into the Georgia transfer when we talk quarterbacks in the SEC coming up in just a little bit. But, that transfer portal has worked some magic for students at the quarterback position. And I think Vandegrift, if used correctly, can kind of continue that because you can do some different things with him. He's not just a pocket guy. Obviously, you want to protect him as well, but you can do some things with him with his legs because he is athletic enough to carry a lot of that out. As for the LSU Tigers opener against the Trojans of USC. And it's been interesting here of late because, kind of a side note here, I think it was Saturday Down South reported that Lincoln Riley really wanted out of that opener against LSU in Vegas and wasn't able to pull it off. So it will be LSU and SC in Vegas. And then LSU plays for the LA championship, I guess, a couple weeks later in Baton Rouge as UCLA comes calling. That's an interesting cross section there. Then you get Ole Miss in Baton Rouge. You get Alabama in Baton Rouge, and you get Oklahoma to cap the regular season in Baton Rouge. I think that looks pretty good if I'm an LSU fan.
And listen, home games aside, how important is this USC game for LSU? They have not started well, have they, Trav? But people may not realize they've lost to FSU twice in a row. They've lost to UCLA. I think they've lost like their last 4 home openers. That is that is something Brian Kelly's got to stop this year.
Yeah, I think it's a big game for both those coaches in Vegas. I mean, Lincoln's
Really
safe as a kitten. I mean, that contract he's got, he's not going anywhere.
No.
But without Caleb Williams at quarterback, both these teams, how about that? Jaden Daniels leaving LSU, and then Caleb Williams leaving SC, the successor bowl, we could call it, at quarterback for those teams. So let's talk Mississippi State. No favors for Jeff Lebby. In his first season in Starkville, it appears the Gators come calling early on. Then a visit from A&M, Arkansas, and Missouri. And by the way, Mississippi State opens at Arizona State, goes to Texas, Georgia, Tennessee, and Ole Miss. How about that gauntlet?
That's just unbelievable.
I mean, win 5. If Lebby wins 5 with this schedule, I mean, you got to feel pretty good about that, I would think, if you support the Bullies.
Well, look, everybody talks about this Florida schedule being the worst schedule in the nation or the toughest schedule in the nation. Well, Mississippi State certainly in the top 5.
Yeah, Lebby said, I would like a word. Yeah.
And I would imagine for next year's schedule, Lebby will have a whole lot more words than he does this year. But look, this Florida at Texas, at Georgia, and A&M, and Arkansas, there are very few schedules in the middle of the year that are worse than that.
Let's talk Missouri. And I think a lot of the buzz about this team isn't just because Eli Drinkwitz's team returned some key pieces on the offensive side. There are certainly some heavy defensive losses to take into account, especially when you talk about just the defensive staff. Corey Batoon coming in as the new defensive coordinator from South Alabama, where ironically enough, he worked for another new SEC defensive coordinator in Kane Wommack, now of Alabama, after serving as head coach at USA. But I think when you look at Mizzou's schedule, again, there's reason to think this team's going to be in good shape when it heads to Tuscaloosa in, say, mid-October, because you're looking at BC at home. This home schedule has Auburn in Columbia. OU visits Como, Arkansas. That looks like a 3-1, 4-0 potential home run there. I'm sure Mizzou's thinking 4-0, even with Oklahoma coming in there.
Yeah.
Now on the road, you go to A&M, you go to Auburn, you go to Alabama, South Carolina, and Mississippi State. But even 3 of those 4 seem pretty manageable. So, which is it, Brent? Is it Eli Drinkwitz and what he brings back, what he's brought in the offseason? Is it the schedule, perhaps, and how it lays out that has Tiger fans especially excited, or is it a little bit of everything?
I think it's a little bit of both, but you can't help but look at the schedule, Trev, that they could be 7-0 going to Tuscaloosa.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, realistically, if they can win at A&M and they can win and they can beat Auburn, that is very possible. Now, of course, they've got Bama and Oklahoma in a row. So, look, when you look at the schedule overall, including this home schedule, Trev, it's not out of the realm of possibility. This is another 10-2, 9-3 football team.
11-win team a year ago, beat Ohio State in the Cotton Bowl, and certainly 8 or 9 wins is going to be the expectation for Mizzou, with the ceiling, as you said, potentially reaching 10, 11, and maybe even a spot in the expanded college football playoff. Let's talk about the Ole Miss Rebels, Brent. Lane Kiffin's team gets Kentucky in Oxford, gets Oklahoma in Oxford, gets Georgia in Oxford, gets rival Mississippi State for that Egg Bowl in Oxford. Road game at Wake Forest, also a road game at Florida. But I think Ole Miss is kind of like Missouri.
Yes.
They're almost mirror images when you talk about the coaches and even the personalities of the head coaches, and the offensive potential for both these teams, and then the schedule too, and how it kind of lays out for Ole Miss.
Look, this schedule very much is like Missouri. I mean, realistically, if they got to watch Wake Forest, as you talked about a few weeks ago, but man, oh man, if they beat Kentucky, they very well could be undefeated going into Baton Rouge in the middle of October. That's going to be huge, frankly. Now, again, you've got LSU, Oklahoma, and Georgia and Florida coming up toward the end of the schedule, but Lane is going to have a real good start on this season, and with them gaining some momentum, if they're healthy, that's going to be this very much could be a playoff team.
Yeah, I think a lot has been made of Missouri's friendly schedule, but when you really look at it, Mizzou still has to go to Tuscaloosa,
That's right,
and College Station.
Yeah.
Whereas Ole Miss, in sort of comparable type games, I would say Ole Miss gets its Alabama game, Georgia, in Oxford.
Yeah.
It gets
right.
Missouri's A&M game on the road at home. Ole Miss does in Oklahoma. I'm talking about in relative terms in what you're anticipating these teams sort of looking like. So, yeah, no reason to think Ole Miss shouldn't be in a good spot.
And Trev, they don't get Alabama, right?
Right. They don't, but they get Georgia.
Yeah, right.
But unlike Missouri, who has to go to Alabama, Ole Miss gets Georgia in Oxford.
That's right.
So it's pretty big deal there, one would think. South Carolina, LSU, Ole Miss, A&M, and Missouri in Cola. Then road games with Kentucky, Alabama, Oklahoma, Clemson. Shane Beamer, you wonder about the excitement meter of Gamecock fans with him these days. That's a rough road gauntlet. So between LSU, Ole Miss, A&M, Mizzou, that's not easy at home either.
No.
You probably need to win at least 2 or 3 of those.
Oh, yeah. Look, this has got what, Trev, like 5 wins written all over it?
Maybe. This is like Mississippi State, right? Kind of similar,
I would say. Oh, yeah. Well, and
except Levy's in his grace period in his first year.
Yes,
that's not the case, unfortunately, for Shane Beamer.
Well, look, I think for Beamer to escape not so much a hot seat, but at least a warm seat, there's got to be maybe an A&M home win, maybe an upset at Clemson, something to give him a little bit more equity. And look, he's had some really good Novembers, but Trav, these fans have probably forgotten a lot of those wins by now.
Yeah, that Clemson win a couple of years ago, that Tennessee win a couple of years ago. They don't have the mileage these days like they used to. Used to be able to get 3 or 4 years out of those. Now you might get 18 months.
Maybe.
If you're lucky. Let's talk Tennessee. The Vols get NC State in Charlotte, and then throughout the season, visits from the Florida Gators, the Alabama Crimson Tide, the Kentucky Wildcats, and Mississippi State. So, boy, when you think about 3 of the 4 primary rivals, I would say for Tennessee, right? Florida, Alabama, Kentucky, Vanderbilt. Those are the 3 you want. You feel good about Vanderbilt, whether you play them at Neyland Stadium, Nashville, or in a parking lot of a Target. But that's how it lays out for the Vols for Josh Heupel.
They've got to be really careful too. This is a real gauntlet early on at Oklahoma, at Arkansas, Florida, Alabama. I mean, they may not have much left for Kentucky, Mississippi State. Again, it goes along with how Nico develops. Can they run the ball like they did last year, and can they play defense with that front 7 like they did last year? Their depth is going to be crucial this year in the draft.
Absolutely. No doubt about that. I think as we talk about Texas A&M here coming up, this probably rivals Florida's. And again, when I say best home schedule, I'm looking at it more from the fans' perspective. When I get that envelope from the ticket office and I got to do the donation and then pay for the tickets, and the prices keep going up, and it gets harder and harder to write that check when you got the 85-inch high-def television and the refrigerator and your own restroom and all those things. But A&M, with Notre Dame to open the season in College
Really?
Station, Mizzou, LSU, and Texas. I mean, bookending this thing with Notre Dame and Texas,
Yeah.
cranking
Yeah.
that thing back up with the Longhorns, that's an easy check to write this year.
Boy, it is. Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Tremendous schedule in a lot of ways. And again, if Connor Weigman's healthy, again, we'll talk about this in a minute. This is a really good quarterback room in a lot of ways. And that's going to be very important for them. So, but that LSU game, for some reason, to me, is going to be that game's usually in November, right?
Yep.
They got it now in October, which is going to be very interesting. And looking at that too. And one team that really sticks out to me that they won't be playing is Alabama. So they escaped the tide too.
Kind of like Ole Miss from that standpoint.
Yes.
But they still get LSU. They still get Texas. Arkansas is still going to be in Arlington too as a neutral site affair. Vanderbilt, really low expectations for this team. But from a home ticket perspective, Virginia Tech, Alabama, Texas, South Carolina, Tennessee.
Yeah.
You could do something on the secondary market if you bought a Vanderbilt season ticket, I would think, because these opposing fan bases are pretty fanatical. When you look at Tech, Alabama, Texas fans are going to be, Texas is basically, when you think of Austin is Nashville West these days, or Nashville is Austin East. They're almost mirror towns, but I think Texas fans will really be excited about making that trip. And, Tennessee's going to overtake Vanderbilt Stadium there in the regular season finale.
And do you think that this year they wish they had like a 60,000 seat stadium?
Oh man,
instead of in
play
the
at
30s?
Nissan. Play where the Titans play.
Absolutely.
Could do that for 3 or 4 of those games. Let's talk newcomers to the SEC. Let's talk Oklahoma first, and we'll get to the Longhorns. OU gets things going with Temple, Houston, Tulane. I think Houston and Tulane could be very interesting.
Yes.
With the coaching change that you had essentially with Tulane going to Houston from New Orleans to Houston. That's certainly a storyline for that scenario, that sequence of games. And then the Sooners open their SEC era with a visit from the Tennessee Vols, South Carolina in Norman, and then Alabama in later November will head out to OU. So pretty good schedule all in all. It doesn't exactly blow your hair back, but I think some of these non-cons like Houston and Tulane have a chance to at least reveal some things with this OU team in September.
Oh, yeah. Agree very much. And by the way, Travis, that Tennessee game, that's going to be the Josh Heupel Bowl, isn't it?
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, homecoming for Josh Heupel. So there will certainly be a lot of buzz around that one. Let's talk about the Texas Longhorns. Steve Sarkisian's team will open the season at home against Colorado State and then get visits from Mississippi State, Georgia, Florida, Kentucky, go on the road to Michigan in early September. Sark does. Texas in Dallas about midway through the season. And then, of course, you're going to get A&M on the road to wrap the regular season. Georgia, Florida, Kentucky, that's pretty stout. I'd say balanced when I look at this Texas schedule. I'd be ready to travel, I think, if I'm a Texas fan, because I'd be going to Ann Arbor, Texas and Dallas, Texas A&M in Dallas, Oklahoma in Dallas. They'll kill me for that, Texas fans, if I mess that up. I'm new to you guys in the SEC. Apologies. Right. And then A&M, of course, in College Station to cap things.
Trev, could the ticket man maybe buy him at least a good car, if not another building, with that Texas, Michigan, and Georgia, Texas game?
Yeah, the Georgia fans are going to be flocking.
Yes.
And Florida fans. I know Florida fans that are already ticketed up and ready to go out there to Austin. Austin, even if Texas isn't great, is a great draw for opposing fan bases. First timers, anyway.
Oh, yeah.
Been out there a couple times. Great town, exploding area, much like Nashville. And then those road games, with Michigan and boy, A&M on the road. Oof, you'll be able to name
Really?
your price.
You
You would
sure
think.
will.
Now it kind of depends maybe a little bit on A&M where the Aggies
Yeah.
are at in year one under Elko.
Mhm.
But that's probably a game where it doesn't even matter because they're
No,
getting this thing
no.
going again. So everybody's going to want to be there. So for me, when I look at it from a fan perspective, Brent, I look at Florida's home slate, Miami, A&M, UCF, Kentucky, LSU, Ole Miss, and then I probably come back around to A&M
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
Notre Dame, Mizzou, LSU, and Texas getting that series reacquainted with the Longhorns. So that'd be my two. What about you?
Yeah, Florida was going to be my number one to go along with that, and I think maybe my number two might be LSU with you with
It's a good one.
even though UCLA is not going to be great, that is a named school, Alabama and Oklahoma, so that they should be the ticket man should be pretty happy in Baton Rouge too.
Should be. And the shame of it is UCLA's fan base won't travel a lick
No,
to
no,
Baton Rouge,
absolutely not.
but it'll look good. Those uniforms on the
Mm,
field together will look good on the cable. I don't think
they
there's any
will
doubt about that. That
in
script,
the night game
UCLA,
too.
absolutely. Absolutely. With that, Brent, let's shift gears. Let's talk some quarterbacks in the SEC. And the way I've kind of broken this down for me anyway, and I want your feedback, obviously, there's sort of this tier one of
Yeah,
quarterbacks.
yeah.
And then there's some wild cards because you got
Mhm.
some starters or some guys that started a year ago, like a Connor Wigman, had the injury, didn't get to see him over the course of a full season. There's some guys that still have some stuff to prove, like a Peyton Thorne of Auburn. And then you got some unsettled situations like Arkansas, Vandy, South Carolina, Mississippi State, where at least a couple of those, if not three, are counting on transfers to step in at those places and make a real impact. But my tier one as of today, and a couple of these guys in the wild cards, I think when we get to mid October, they will be tier one, and maybe one or two of these tier one guys will have moved down. But it's Quinn Ewers of Texas, it's Jackson Dart of Ole Miss, Carson Beck of Georgia, Jalen Milrow of Alabama, and I'm going to put Brady Cook up
Yeah,
there
yeah,
in that
yes,
tier one. So
yes.
I've got five guys right now that I feel pretty confident about having at that tier one, based in large part on what we've already seen from them.
Look, I'm basically going with the same thing as you, and I'm glad you included Brady Cook. Now, look, Cook's a good quarterback in his own right. Trav, how much does Luther Burden make Brady Cook even a better quarterback?
He makes a lot of quarterbacks a
Yeah,
better
yeah,
quarterback. It's going to
absolutely.
be interesting to see if they can sustain the run game
Yes.
with the departures there. And then more so than anything, I think defensively, that's where I'm going to be wondering a little bit about the Tigers in terms of being able to sustain the improvement that we've seen the last year or two. They desperately needed it on that side of the ball. But as for wild cards, Nico Iamaleava
Mhm.
of Tennessee, Garrett Nussmeier, he is another one of these
Yes.
guys.
Yes.
Garrett Nussmeier and Graham Mertz of Florida. Well, this whole list is what's crazy. I think
Really is.
how this could turn over by midseason at the quarterback position, because I think Alamaliva, Nussmeier, Wigman, Arnold, Mertz, I think all of those guys are capable of doing things that put them in that tier one. If you start shuffling some guys
Yeah.
maybe up and down, Brent.
Yeah, I agree with that. And look, the thing to me with Nussmeier is, Trev, they may have the best O line in the league, and especially with Campbell on that line, and you know they're going to have good receivers.
Yeah,
So, and if they can
Tyron
run
Lacey and
yeah, oh
yeah,
yeah, they can run the ball a little bit. The Emory kid, I understand, is either UCLA or he's looking there.
yeah,
He's going to be gone, but that will make a big difference. And listen to me, the other thing is it's quarterback rooms in this league because of injury, and
good
something you
point.
brought up before. I think I really like this A&M quarterback room. It's not just Weedman, is it?
No,
Um, in what they've got, and I think with Alabama, with Milroe and Tyler Simpson. Look, if Milroe on a run has a tweaked hamstring, I think they've got, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think they've got confidence, Trav and Ty Simpson, that he could come in and be able to move this offense a quarter or two, if not a game or two.
Yeah, Alabama's room is really nice. I mean, Texas's is really nice.
Yeah,
with
yes.
Arch Manning, come on, as a backup. I like Garrett Nussmeier because he's old. Garrett Nussmeier is you talk about waiting your turn. Wow. And he's not scared either. When you've seen him in opportunities in the past, this is a guy, the gunslinger moniker comes to mind pretty quickly. And the thing about him in this upcoming season is that if that defense doesn't improve, he's going to have to be very productive.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
To perhaps keep them in games.
Yeah.
If they get into shootouts, I think Garrett Nussmeier can put up some very, very big numbers. I'm excited about Weigman staying healthy. Jackson Arnold in the bowl game appearance to cap last season showed you a lot of good things, had some things that were sort of symbolic of a young quarterback. And again, Mertz, Peyton Thorne of Auburn, it's a proving year for him. And then we talked about Vandegrift at Kentucky as a wild card that I think is going to have an opportunity to really step in there and put his imprint. But Nico to me is the wildest of wild cards because he is sort of a unicorn talent with his size and his mobility and his playmaking ability. He's like a undernourished Cam Newton in some ways when I watch Nico. But we'll see what happens with that. So those are some quarterbacks that we are definitely keeping an eye on during the.
And Trev, let me add, I'd be remiss. Trev, what about Diego at Vanderbilt?
That's my guy. Now, Diego, he's a wild card for sure. Yes. So if he gets on the field, look out for that dude. Right. New Mexico State transfer.
Yes.
Love me some Diego there for the Vanderbilt Commodores, and just a totally unsettled situation, it seems, for the Commodores. Hey, Brent, let's get into these kickoff times for the college football playoff. There you see them right there, right?
Yes.
Try to adjust this a little bit for us. There you go. How about these first round games over on the left with the Friday night, 8:00 Eastern playoff game on December the 20th? I think they're careful not to sort of put the seeds that are going to play in these games because I got to think where these games are going to be played at 8:00 on December the 20th and December the 21st on campus sites without domes.
Yes.
Weather and climate probably going to have something to do with it. Although the masochist in me kind of hopes we get like a Michigan home game at 8:00 Eastern on a Friday night.
Yeah.
In December.
There could easily be snow flurries, if nothing else, during that time. But and look, one of the best things, we'll get into this on down the line, one of the best things college football has done is they've cleared out a lot of this December calendar to where this is not such a bear for these coaches, particularly who are going to be in the playoffs. So the finals will be over by then. Now, look, the bowls are going to be starting about a week before that when we actually get into the playoffs. So both these begins on December the 14th with the Camellia Bowl. But this is something folks are really going to have to get used to. And Trev, the thing that really sticks out to me, if you're a New Year's Eve, New Year's Day guy, boy, this is just right down your alley, isn't it?
Yeah, those quarterfinals with the one game on New Year's Eve night at the Fiesta Bowl, and then 3 consecutive playoff games, quarterfinal games on New Year's Day. 1:00, you're going to have the Peach Bowl in Atlanta. Of course, Rose Bowl ain't coming off 5 Eastern on New Year's Day. So you can write that one in before and know when that one was going to be played. And then you'll have the quarterfinal in the Sugar Bowl at 8:45 Eastern on Wednesday night, January the 1st. And then semifinals a little bit more than a week later. The following Thursday, you'll crank up one of the semifinals. Interesting that these aren't double header semifinals, right?
Really.
You're going to have them broken up. You're going to maximize that coverage And then your championship won't be played until January the 20th.
Mhm.
Something you see here with a lot of this, see those 4 letters? ESPN,
That's right.
ESPN, ESPN.
Yeah.
Little TNT in there too,
Yes. Yes.
in those first round games, but pretty much an ESPN production, no doubt about it. Hey, Brent, before we get out of here, wanted to get a few nuggets from that notebook of yours. What do you got for us as we make our way out?
Now, you and I haven't talked about this, but to dovetail what you're saying is, Travis, on that Black Friday, games have like doubled as far as for TV, for the conference that you and I cover every day. That Egg Bowl being at 3:30, and then Georgia Tech at 7:30. Now, that may not be great games, but we'll be in front of the two for both of them.
Well, it's probably going to be a little bit better than Arkansas, Missouri,
Yeah, no
which
doubt.
that's been a Black Friday game, it seems like, for a few years. So
It really has.
football, and more football. And then when you combine the NFL and all this too, once you get
Yeah.
into December,
Oh, yeah.
in the bowl schedule, still, if you thought the bowl schedule was going to take a step back because of this expanded playoff, no, that's
No.
that's
No.
that's not the case.
And Travis, the other thing going on, and this did not take long to go through the proper channels. Corporate logos will be
Saw
on the
that.
field. Will be on the field starting this year. As I said, well, this is an easy revenue stream. Duh.
Yeah, you start thinking about the possibilities of companies that you would think
Yeah.
might be on the field. Chick-fil-A for Georgia would make sense.
Sure.
Maybe Dreamland and Tuscaloosa. I
Yeah.
don't know if it's a big enough corporate situation. Regions, has
Yes.
been a sponsor of a lot of SEC
Oh,
stuff.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
would think they would be a player in all of this. And yeah, it is what it is at this point. I mean, you're hearing from athletic directors, projects being put on hold because anticipating revenue sharing and not knowing what that's going to look like, the chunk that's going to take out of their coffers. So still a very much changing time with the landscape of college athletics. Anything else, Brent, before we get out of here?
Trey, before we do, I think we need a quick. We need a golf report. We need a pumps report, and you and the chocolate lady, shall we say,
Yeah.
had a wonderful time seeing the Rolling Stones. How about that?
That was a lot of fun. Went down earlier in the week to Orlando, and it's just amazing. Mick Jagger, Keith Richards, Ronnie Wood. That's pretty much what you got left of the band. Although Chuck Leavell, the Tuscaloosa native, still on the keys, and he was a real highlight Monday night with his work. So it's just a good time.
Yeah.
These guys are amazing at their age. They don't just get out there and kind of statuesque it. Mick Jagger still moves all around a crazy, massive stage setup, and the sound was good. They still play live. You got a lot of bands now that are doing pre-recorded stuff and not really live. The Stones are live, man. And Tyler Childers, we're a big fan of his, so he opened up, made it very much worth the trip. As far as golf, the wife and I, Heather and I, last Friday night, couples night champs.
Oh,
so there you go.
Oh,
yeah. So we'll defend that title later this evening. I know that's important to all the viewers out there. Yeah, Heather kind of carried our group. So we got some looks when the results were announced, like maybe we pencil whipped some people, but I can promise you we did not. Handicap for both of us helped us, and we were able to do that. But always a good time, Brent. Look forward to doing it again next week.
And as we go out, is Pomps getting a little bit into football mode, or is he still more in Marshall Dillon and Gunsmoke mode right now?
He's all about the westerns. He loves to shoot them ups. He sits back there in his room and just consumes them. I mean, until like 1 or 2 in the morning.
Yeah.
Stay up all night watching the shoot 'em ups.
I think he pictures himself as Marshall Dillon.
He does. I think he does. Absolutely. All right, Brent. A lot of fun. Enjoyed catching up. Do it again
You
real
too,
soon.
bro. Take care.
There you go. For Brent Beaird, Travis Reier, thanking you for joining us. If you haven't subscribed to our fledgling YouTube channel, we hope you'll do that. Hit us with a like if you don't mind as well. Turn on those notifications. You'll get all our content as it drops. For Brent Beaird, Travis Reier, thanks again. Until next time, so long, everybody.